At the beginning of the story, I briefly talk about who I was before the changes that happened. In February 2018, I did not have good mental health at all. Most people may have thought I was fine, but only my wife really knew how unhappy I was and how my health was getting worse. I was let down by the biggest project of my career after years of hard work. I started to question who I was and what my future held as a designer and builder. It was impossible for me not to think about hurting myself every day. But I wasn't moving yet, either because I was scared or because I didn't like how I had planned to leave. It was important to me that the exit was clean. Being alone called in the evening of February 18, 2018. I felt very alone on my birthday, even though everyone else was having a party. Friends of my wife's from college asked us to their house for a movie night. I fought the thought with everything I had. Their lives were full of these kinds of events, but I dodged them because I'm very antisocial. Even though I still have this trait, I'm trying hard to get rid of it. My life-changing journey taught me that. I was mad and didn't want to go to the party, so I sped off in my car without a plan. During this time, my wife went to the event and texted me over and over to ask me to come. She begged me not to listen, so I found a quiet spot to park my car, out of sight of everyone else, and set up my sleeping bag for a peaceful night. As dawn broke on a calm February morning, something strange happened to break the peace. I was throwing up, had shivers I couldn't stop, and my fever was rising. I was upset that my car wouldn't move because the radio hum drained the battery overnight, which is a common rookie mistake with touchscreen car radios these days. I was shaking when I asked my wife for help because I couldn't explain where I was. When I got home, I fell asleep on the couch in the living room. It was a short-term escape from my flu-like symptoms, but this flu wasn't like other flus. It felt like an alien was taking over my body and making it sick. It was scary how often I threw up and had fevers. By February 22, I was tired and weak. Even though my wife begged me to go to the hospital, I put it off because I knew how much the IQ bills would be. At that point, it was either going broke or maybe even dying. The evening went on and people were making food at home, so everything seemed fine. Still, I was having a hard time in the bathroom because I felt like bad things were about to happen. I hid outside even though my time was almost up to protect my family from the harm. Being on the side of the road, I gave up and knew what would happen. More and more, each contraction pushed me toward the edge. When the pain was at its worst, there was a deep change, a giving up on the fact that death was inevitable, which went beyond the depths of misery. For a short time, there was a deep peace around me, and the pain eased, making me feel very calm. I knew I was dead at that very moment. But this finding didn't scare me. It made me feel, well, not interested at all. Then there was a drop into total darkness. It was like being suspended in a thick, sticky substance with no indication of time or place. I often feel trapped, but this static world made me feel calm in a way that doesn't happen to me very often. A faint reddish color suddenly broke through the obsidian darkness, making it feel like pulling your foot out of mud. I quickly felt like I was attached to my garage door as this feeling went through my body. Then I was pulled into a dreamlike scene that pushed me away from my physical anchor and into an endless void. There was a bright light shining in this huge empty space that made me think of the deepest parts of space, or a desert night without the moon. Things seemed to be moving around it, even though it wasn't moving itself. Its presence could be felt in every part of life. Something hazy and hard to describe was to my left. Its form was always shifting, like a concert of smooth waves that made it look like satin flapping in the wind. It looked odd, and the way it felt in 3 dimensions, like a sponge, was like it was made of strands of an alien clear essence. It had vibrant colors all over its surface that made it look like nothing on Earth. They moved around like the bright spots on a cuttlefish's skin. I was stuck in this mysterious world, surrounded by the wonder of the unknown, and every moment brought me new insights. He was always learning new things and becoming more aware. It's still not clear how I connect with these things, but I can't help but be interested in the huge amount of information that lies ahead. This is proof that the human experience goes on and on. It looked like time was going on forever, like there was no such thing as time. I didn't understand it. I had never felt anything like that before or since I was there. Happiness that didn't last like it does at life's high points. Instead, I felt a huge wave of pure love that changed me in an instant. A choice came to me from the depths of my mind. It was clear as day, and I couldn't explain it. Things would go the same way whether you stay or go back. I chose to return. Then why? What would make the results stay the same? Was the outcome good or bad? I didn't feel the need to find answers to these questions, but they kept coming up. Maybe the answer was in the unfinished songs of my life. My choice wasn't based on fear. It was based on what was best for me. It was like meeting the truth without any masks on. Some people may come back to Earth to care for loved ones or do other things, but I came back for a different reason. What a terrible thought. My family would have to deal with the chaos of my old life. It happened because of years of greed that wasn't meant to happen. Because I didn't want them to have to deal with the mess while I was gone, I cleaned up before I left. Grace hit me, and all of a sudden I was back where I started, curled up like a baby. When I came back, there was a rush of air, and I was tied to my everyday body again. I got up in the cold night air and walked inside without shoes on. I was totally worn out, but I felt better. Even though it wasn't hot anymore, the hunger and thirst were still very strong. That was the second time he was so worn out after meeting the supernatural, but that's a story for another time. To get an idea of how tired I am, think about how pilots feel when they land on Earth after being in space. It feels like this pull makes the weight on both the body and the soul twice as heavy. My daughter and wife were waiting for me in the kitchen while I made a grilled cheese. Before I went to the bathroom to get some water, I only ate a small piece. I felt a different kind of happiness as I worked to understand my spiritual path. It wasn't based on my ego. After a few hours, I was just about to fall asleep when I woke up to the sound of my own loud laughter. It went on for so long that I was breathing for air. Right then, my body was empty, which was a funny way to think about how short life is. When the signal to leave life came, the first bite of food went through my new body. It was a wonderful moment that showed me how beautiful and amazing life is. I had been tired for a month, but my mind was not on my sickness. It was on a big change in my life. After coming back to the real world, I went back to work in construction and ended a big job. After I reached this important goal, I thought about all the things that could happen with my second chance at life. A lot of my blog posts are about what happened to me after that. The way my spiritual experience made me more artistic and caring is at the heart of each story. Not only did I feel very happy, but my tastes in food also changed a little, and I started to hate alcohol more. My worry and ego lost their power, and I learned more about myself and how to handle my feelings better. They no longer define me. Instead, they help me learn. I thought there was more serendipity in my life, which led to a more purposeful and intuitive life full of endless imagination and a sense that I was linked to everything in the world. In 2018, on a cool June morning, I felt a rush of happiness that I had never felt before, except for short periods of maternal pride. Over the months, I felt like I was tuned into the divine or the rhythm of awareness. This made my view of life sharper. Even though I can't feel the link like I could when I was in that high state, it's always there in my mind, drawing me closer every day. Every time the sun rises, I remember the reason I let go. I feel like I'm back to being a creative person on this trip, away from the ego-based things that had been holding me back for most of my adult life. I found myself again in that brief vision or close call with death. It helped me stay focused and on track, and it brought me closer to the spirit I met on February 22, 2018. I make it a point to work toward this goal every day, slowly getting ready for the end of my normal life. Giving in to the depths of life is how I found renewal. It takes me back to my journey. This trip is an important part of my life. That's all I have to say about this. In the box below, you can say what you think.